What we're going to talk about tonight is gospel tracts. Gospel tracts. I jotted this down. I said, in writing to the Corinthian believers, Paul explains to what lengths to which he would go to share the gospel. He said this in 1 Corinthians 9:22. He said, "To the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some." So he explains that he's willing to do whatever he's got to do to go through whatever links he has to go through in order to see some folks saved. And I'm going to tell you something right now. That's the heart of a soul winner. That's the heart of a true soul winner. And I believe that if Paul meant by all means, he would no doubt have used gospel tracts to help save the lost. So we're going to talk about gospel tracts. First thing that I want to talk about in this first point is never underestimate the power of a gospel tract. And I feel like a lot of folks do. I feel like they underestimate gospel tracts, underestimate how useful a tool they can be, how effective they can be. So I want to share a couple stories with you, if that's all right, before we dive into this thing. And I read both of these, so I'm going to share them with you. I read them as true, so I'm going to tell them to you as true, okay? The first one was about a diver who saw a piece of paper clutched in the shell of an oyster down at the bottom of the ocean. The way the story goes, he swam down, he grabbed it, and he found that it was a gospel tract. And when he pulled it up to the top and he saw it was a gospel tract, his words were, and I quote, "I can't hold out any longer. His mercy is so great that he has caused his word to follow me even to the bottom of the ocean." The way the story goes, apparently this guy had been under conviction for a while. And he was a diver. He dove down. He found this piece of paper. He brought it up, and it was a gospel tract. And that was the last straw. Was all he could handle. The other story that I heard, and I may have shared this one with you before, but it was about a man that was going through a very difficult time. He was down, and it had got to the point where he was about to commit suicide. He'd made his mind up that he was going to commit suicide. So he actually went in. He tied the noose. He found a place in his house where he could hang it. He got the chair. He pulled it up under. He got up on the chair. He was putting the noose around his neck, and somebody knocked on his door. And he thought to himself, he said, "Well, that'll go away eventually." He waited a minute. He went to put the noose back around his neck. Somebody knocked on the door. Finally, in frustration, he tossed the noose to the side. He climbed down off of the chair. He walked to the door, he opened it up, and it was somebody had stuck a gospel tract in his door. When he opened it up, it fell at his feet, and the question on the top of the gospel tract was, "Where will you go if you die today?" And he picked it up and he took it in. Well, the story goes, he read it and he got saved, got born again. So just two examples of things that I've read, and I'm sure there's thousands more, just two examples of actually how powerful gospel tracts can actually be. So I want to share just a couple of things with you about gospel tracts. We're going to kind of read through some of these. I've got some stuff that I'm going to tell you. I'm going to get some stuff that I'm going to share with you and all of that. And if you've got some stuff that you want to add, I encourage you to do that. But a tract can get inside places that you cannot. It can get inside places that you cannot. There's going to be some homes that you go to, you go door knocking, there's going to be some homes you go to, they're not going to let you in there. But a gospel tract can get in there. And I'm going to share this with you later. One of the points we're going to get to here in about 3 hours is always lead with a gospel tract. If you're going out and talking to folks, and I'm encouraging that, and we actually have gospel tracts in the back. And so tonight, if you want some of those, they're available back there. But a gospel tract can get inside places that you cannot. Number two, it always catches a person in the right mood, because it only speaks when he's reading it. You ever went and tried to witness to somebody that they just wasn't in the right mood? They was aggravated, upset, busy. That's usually what happens right there is you go try to talk to somebody. They're always busy. But you leave that gospel tract and they take that thing in and toss it down on the table beside their lazy chair. By the time when they get done, when they finish being busy and they go in there and sit down, there it is. And you'd be surprised how many folks will pick them things up and read them if it's the right kind. They'll pick them up and read them. And number 3, it sticks to what it has to say and never argues back. I've never heard a gospel tract get in a 45-minute debate over somebody on how to get born again. It says what it has to say. It says what it has to say. That's it. Never argues back. Number 4, it never compromises. It's straight to the point. Never compromises. If a gospel tract teaches salvation by grace through faith and it gets in somebody's house, guess what? It ain't going to back up. It ain't going to back up. It's not going to compromise its position. I like this one. It never gets tired. It gives up. That's a gospel tract. It never gets tired or gives up. I wish I could say that. I get tired though. I get tired. Well, every once in a while I get a mind full of doubt and get to battling another long and give up. The gospel tract never does it. Everybody got those? Number 6, it never gets discouraged. Somebody bad mouths a gospel tract, guess what it says next time he picks it up? Same thing. Same thing. Doesn't get discouraged. Number 7, it works while we sleep. That's kind of important because a lot of folks, when they get to the point where they're ready to listen, for a lot of folks, it's in the middle of the night. They sitting up thinking about everything, wondering. It might just be at that moment they say, "Man, where's that thing that guy handed me today?" Dig that thing out, and you'd be surprised, how God will use them. Kind of like that guy that was about to commit suicide, and that thing, when it opened it up, it says, "Where will you go when you die?" I mean, that's hitting the nail on the head right there. Right? Number 8, it never loses its temper. Anybody in here never lose their temper? Never loses its temper. Number 9, it can be mailed, or sometimes we cannot go. Say like where? Foreign countries. Hey, some foreign countries you can't get in as a Christian. China's one of them. You can't get in China as a Christian, as a missionary. You have to go in disguise. You have to go as an English teacher and teach the Bible. Do stuff like that. And then China is not the only place. There's other places. But a lot of them places you can send mail to. And guess what you can send in the mail? Gospel tracts. Gospel tracts. It's an inexpensive way of carrying out their Great Commission. Inexpensive way of carrying out the Great Commission. It can be given when time does not permit us to present the gospel verbally. You say, like when? Like a drive-through window. You drive through a drive-through window, let's just be real honest. Them people behind you and them people working in there ain't wanting you to sit there for 15 minutes trying to explain to somebody how to be born again. But, you know what you can do? In my gospel tract. In my gospel tract. Time does not permit. Number 12. It is effective for people who do not like to witness verbally. Some people struggle with that. Now, if you was to ask most people, they'd say, "Oh, I can't witness verbally." Most people lie because they can go talk about everything else. But there are some people that cannot do it. They can't talk to people, and but this is a good way, an effective way. People that don't like to witness verbally. All right, here's the one we're going to spend a little time on. When using gospel tracts, when using tracts. Number one. Now, I got just a couple of ours up here. These actually have our old address stamped on the back of them. Some of them do. But when you're using a tract, you want to use a tract that gives a clear presentation of the gospel. So I encourage you, when you pick one up, if you order some for yourself, and you can do that, you don't have to take ours. You can go home and if you plan on handing out 4,000 or 5,000 a month, I encourage you to order your own. But I mean, and you can. I mean, that's a doable thing. And but when you're doing that, make sure that number one, and I'm going to give you more on this here in just a minute, that it gives a clear presentation of the gospel. I want you should be able to read it and understand exactly what it's saying. Meaning this, the gospel is not difficult. We dumb it down. It's as easy as ABC, right? And it is. It is. The gospel is not difficult. Most lost people have very little Bible knowledge and are easily confused. So you don't want to give them a gospel tract that explains the deity of Christ. You want to give a gospel tract that simplifies and simply gives a clear presentation of the gospel. And something else that I would say is this. It should also include an invitation to prompt the sinner to receive Christ. So, if you'll read on the back of most of these, some of these, and all of them are a little different, it gives an example of a prayer, not pray this prayer, but an example of a prayer. And then it goes through and says, did you mean it the best that you know how? You prayed this prayer. Did you mean it the best you know how? I hope you did. Remember, whosoever shall call shall be saved. If you called and meant it, you received what God said you would. Forgiveness and salvation. If you're still not certain, please read this booklet over until you're sure. That's what it says. And this one is the Romans Road to Heaven is what this one is. But yeah, it needs to be clear. It needs to be clear. And I don't know how else to explain that, but I've read some. They're not clear. You read them, and I'm like, I don't really understand what they're trying to get you to do right here. It needs to be very clear presentation of the gospel. Also, use tracts that are attractive. Now, you'll notice on ours, you got this one. We was just talking about this. You got this guy sitting on here. He's shooting a rifle. Boy, you talk about politically correct. Looks like an AR-15 too. Amen. And it says how to get on target. It's attractive. This one's got a picture of a family on it. They got a donations box. The top says, I'm a pretty good person. So if you ever come across somebody that says, I'm a pretty good person, you try to talk to them, we've talked about that. This tract right here, something you can leave with them, they can read for themselves, kind of go with that. This one's got a picture of Jesus on the cross. Just attractive. This one's got a picture of the Roman road, a stone Roman road, and talks about the Roman Empire, talks about the Roman road, all of that. There's other ones back there, but People are more likely to read a tract if it's neat and attractive and printed on good quality paper. There's cheap ones that are not very attractive. And I'm not saying people can't get saved by them, but I'm saying when somebody sees something like this, how many of y'all ever seen that gospel tract looks like a $100 bill? Y'all ever seen that one? Looks like a folded up $100 bill. There was one year somebody went around the White County Fair and was throwing them all over the ground. And people was walking around going, whoa, and picking them things up. And they was thinking that, they found $100. And you open it up and there's a gospel tract. I'm going to tell you something right now. A lot of folks probably didn't read that. They probably got mad and put it back on the ground, right? But Brother Michael, will you go back here and talk to that gentleman, see what he needs for us, please? Yeah, use tracts that are attractive. Number 3, use tracts that are biblically sound. So I'm talking about, this is mainly for, if you're planning on using a lot of tracts, planning on doing a lot of stuff like that, if you're going to order your own, make sure these things are there. Make sure that they're quality, attractive, clear presentation of the gospel. But most importantly, make sure they're biblically sound. Don't mess up and get one that says that you got to earn your way into heaven. All right. Don't mess up and get one that says that, in order to stamp a seal on your salvation, you got to be baptized. Don't mess up and get one like that. Make sure that you're getting it from a reputable place, a place that believes. And most of the places you can order them on websites, most of the time you can get on there and find a doctrinal statement and read their doctrinal statement, kind of find out exactly what they believe and all of that. But make sure if you're going to order some, make sure it contains sound doctrine. Now, let's get it to use. Y'all ready? Always be gracious when passing out tracts. Always be gracious. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but every once in a while folks are rude. Y'all know that? Y'all ever met anybody that was rude? If you ever been to Walmart, you have. Right? Every once in a while folks are rude. And here's the reality. Every once in a while folks are rude when you're trying not to be. When you're trying to be nice, when you're trying to be gracious, when you're trying to be sincere, when you're trying to give them something that can alter their everlasting eternity, they can be very rude. And here's the thing. If you try to give somebody a gospel tract and they refuse it, that is their right. Nobody has to take what you're giving them. Nobody has to accept it. Nobody has to do it. And every once in a while, they might give you a dirty little saying, or they might call you a dirty little name, or they may give you a dirty little facial expression, or they may do something like that. And but here's the deal: be gracious. Be gracious when passing out tracts. Never be rude if they don't accept it. That is their right. Use tracts that are not lengthy. That are not lengthy. There's a particular brand of tract that are really good, but they're a little booklet. Is what they are. They're called chick tracts. Y'all ever seen them? Chick tracts. And they're a little booklet, and they're good. I mean, they got some good stuff in them. And if somebody's willing to sit down and take a few minutes to read through it, it's kind of like in comic book form type of deal. They're really good. But I'll just give you an example. Use tracts that are not lengthy. We were at a convenience store, and a lady, we were standing in line. We was waiting in line to get up there to pay for her stuff at a convenience store there in Searcy. And the woman in front of us, she handed the cashier one of them chick tracts. And the cashier took it and let her pay for her stuff. We got up there, and she said, "What did I even get?" And she looked at it, and she goes, and she thumbed through it, She thumbed through that thing, and her statement was this: I ain't got time to read that. I ain't got time to read that thing. She's like, that thing's that thick. That's what she said. That thing's that thick. So you'll notice that all the ones that we have are a bifold. That's it right there. And it gives you all the information that you need. It gives you plenty of information. Not lengthy. The average person will not read a tract if it's 10 pages. They're not going to sit down and read through all of that. Just the average person. Y'all going to like it. Tracts should be given out plentifully. 2 Corinthians 9:6 says this, but this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. So I keep a stack of them in my truck. And every once in a while, I'll have to refresh them. I'll talk about that here. Well, actually, that's number 7. Keep a fresh supply. Keep a fresh supply. Because every once in a while, it's in my truck, right? In the little center console. Well, everything goes in my little center console in my truck. So they'll get all bent and out and warped and crap, crumpled up and all that kind of stuff. So, you know what I do with them? I throw them in the trash and I get me some more, right? Keep a fresh supply. But I keep a stack of them. And I'll take them dudes all over the place. And I'm fixing to tell you some places here in just a minute. I mean, I'll take them everywhere. I've always got them with me. And keep them right there in that little middle. They stay just like this in my little middle thing right there. And every time I'm somewhere and think about it, I grab one of them little tracts and I'll stick them in the little gas pump where the little trigger's at. A little trigger. I'll stick it right there in that little thing. And you say, well, if the wind blows it down, I don't care. Then the guy that comes through pick up the parking lot, he gets it, right? Rather than the guy doing the gas. I mean, I'll take them, I'll stick them all over the place. And but that's just a couple of things. How many of y'all get them things in the mail trying to get you to get a credit card? Y'all ever get them? What do you do with them? Get a credit card? You do what? You know that's one of the greatest gifts God's ever given you? Not the credit card. If you'll open that thing up, there's usually an envelope in there, and every once in a while, used to it'd be all the time, they're getting where they don't do it a whole lot no more, but used to you open that thing up and there's an envelope in there and the postage is already paid on that thing. You know what's perfect in them? Pull that envelope out, stick your gospel tract in there, lick it, shut it, stick it in your mailbox. That's a free gift. Somebody that works at Capital One is fixing to be asked the question, all this I did for thee, right? They're going to open it up and they're going to say, all right? So, and letters, right? Letters. How many folks still pay some bills through the mail? Anybody still pay some bills through the mail? I still pay some bills through the mail. There's still doctor bills. We get doctor bills. I'll write a check, pay a doctor bill through the mail. You know what goes in there with it? Every time I send something out, unless it's a letter to a church asking for a letter for somebody to join. But most of the time, if I send something out, got a gospel tract in it. And so, yeah, that's a good thing. Here's another one. Now, for some of y'all, I'm going to have to give you some guidelines on this next one because you may not want to follow it up with a gospel tract, but leave tracts with a tip. In a restaurant, now look right here. If you got $100 bill, like if you ate $100 worth of food and you're going to give them $1 bill, don't leave a tract with it. You say, why? Because they sure ain't wanting to read about the Jesus you serve with the tip you just gave them. But if you're a good tipper, all right, if you're a good tipper, like you ought to be, if you're a good tipper, if you're a good, and look right here, if you've sat there and griped out, chewed out your waitress for the last hour and a half, do not leave a gospel tract with your tip, all right? But if you've sat there and been a Christian in that restaurant and been gracious, and wasn't ugly when they gave you unsweet tea instead of sweet tea, and wasn't ugly when your steak wasn't cooked just right, but you was gracious and patient, the way the Bible says we ought to be. Everybody all right? I feel like I need to preach on this a little bit. And you was all of those things, and by the end of that, you were still in the good graces of your waitress or waiter. And it come bill time. Take your tip, put it right there. Close that thing up and set it on that table. You say, will they take it? 100% every time. Every time. I've never seen one left on a table. They will take it every single time with that tip. They don't have to. They'll open it up and take it out.
I agree with what you said 100%. But if you are rude to a waiter, and it can happen, you can have a bad day and mess up and be rude to that waitress. They probably haven't been apologized to very much.
No.
Like if you want to fix that, you apologize to them, be sincere, tell them how much your God is displeased with what you did, then you might still be able to handle the gospel.
Yeah. And a good tip. I said, and a good tip.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, here's the next one for you. Leave tracks everywhere. Everywhere. I think Brother Derek Collins is the one that was telling this. They were on a road trip somewhere, and they stopped at a public restroom, used the bathroom, and I don't remember who it was with him, ain't no telling. And they sat and unrolled the toilet paper and rolled it back and put gospel tracts in it. So that when they would pull the toilet paper, a gospel tract would fall out. So leave tracts everywhere. Everywhere. You go in Walmart, leave a tract with your cashier. Stick some, leave them everywhere. Leave them in public restrooms, ATMs. I mean, we go places all the time. Like I said, gas stations, doctor's offices. Get creative. Make it fun. Give yourself if you want to do this, and I encourage everybody to do this, give yourself a goal by the end of the day. By the end of the day, I'm going to hand out 50 gospel tracts. You're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to get creative. 100 gospel tracts. By the end of the day, I'm going to hand out 100 gospel tracts every day this week. I'm going to hand out 100 gospel tracts. You're going to have to get creative. Leave them everywhere. There's a few places, bathrooms, mall, post office, work, funeral homes. That's a good place. That's a good place. Shopping carts. Well, I don't know how good this one is, but I like it. Enclosed pockets at stores. So you go try something on. If you take it off, say, I don't like this, stick a gospel tract in the pocket where you leave it there. Yeah. On seats in restaurant lobbies with fast food employees. Like I said, you're going through a drive-through. It don't take 2 seconds. You get your food, and I'm fixing to show you this here in just a minute, but you do this. They're going to take it. They're going to go, and they're going to take it in. And when they've got it, you look, it's theirs. It's theirs, right? Fast food employees on ATMs, bank counters, and elevators, on hotel dressers. That's a good one. If you stay in a lot of places, I know a lot of folks travel for their jobs and stuff like that. On hotel dressers. In waiting rooms, doctor's office, hospitals, inside books and magazines, laundromats. I mean, there's countless places. So leave tracts everywhere. Use tracts for all occasions. You're going to notice that, and we don't have a lot of them, but we can get them. They make tracts that are, like for right now, they make tracts that are seasonal, for occasions, seasonal. So they'll make tracts that are Christmas, kind of related. They have that Christmas look to them, and they make tracts for all occasions. And so use them for all occasions, not just holidays, but all occasions. Everything you go to, take tracts and use tracts. You got a big work outing, take tracts, hand tracts out. Just stuff like that. Pass out tracts to the masses. Ball games, amusement parks, shopping centers. We've and some places you have to get permission. Some places you just have to stay so far away from the building. But we've went and camped out at grocery stores in the past and just go stand out in front of the grocery store. And now you talk about that's people all day. You want to hand out 100 tracts in a day? Go to a grocery store, right? Go to a grocery store, and we just stand out there and everybody come in. We just going from person to person and just handing out them gospel tracts, catching everybody going in, and they've done that. Brother Derek told this one also. Brother Derek Collins, he told this one also. He said they went to Silver Dollar City, took their youth group to Silver Dollar City one year, and before they went in, it was hot outside. So everybody had cracked their windows on their cars about this much, all through Silver Dollar City parking lot. And them teenagers, before they went in, they said, "Hey, Brother Derek, can we hand them some tracts?" He said, "Yeah." He handed them all a pile, and they scattered out across that parking lot and just went through and tossing them in the windows of them cars. So when they come out, they had a gospel tract. Every car in Silver Dollar City parking lot had you say, is that legal? I don't know. I didn't say it was legal. I said they did it. And didn't get caught, didn't get in trouble. All right. So when they come out of Silver Dollar City parking lot, every driver's seat had a gospel tract in it. So now here's a good thing right here. And both these last ones kind of go together, so I'll give both of them. Use tracts as openers and use tracts as reinforcers. And this can go with because we're talking about this whole series of everything. This is kind of the conclusion of this whole series. This will be our last lesson on this evangelism series that we've been going over the last 5-6 weeks. And this is not for the. Let me just put it like this: for all of us, this is not a replacement for soul winning. We don't have anybody that can't sit down and have a conversation, right? This is not a replacement for that. This is an aid in that. So when whether you're door knocking like the guy in our story, or if you're going out, if you're going to talk to somebody at Walmart, God lays somebody, if you see somebody at Walmart, God lays it on your heart to go talk to them. Or if it's a coworker, if it's a friend or whatever. One of the things that is good to have and good to use is gospel tracts for them, for an occasion. If it's somebody it can be even better because you can hand pick exactly which one that they need, right? But if you're door knocking, let me use somebody as an example. Try to come over here. Now y'all watch this. This works every single time. Knock on the door, Charlie comes to the door, he opens the door, and you go, that'll happen every time. Every single time when they open that door, if you'll lead out with that gospel tract, you'll lead out. They open the door, first thing you do is this. This right here. I'm talking about, I say every time, not every time, 95% of the time. They're going to go, and they're going to take it, and they're going to do this. Right? They're going to look at it. So that's why you lead out with that. You lead out with that. Now here's the thing about it. When they take it, it's theirs. It's theirs. You don't take it back. They say, "Oh, I'm a member of a church. I've been going to a church for 10,000 years. I don't need this." Say, well, maybe you know somebody that does. Maybe you know somebody that can use it. Do not take it back. Once they take it, it's theirs. I've heard people say, "I'm going to throw it in the trash." You know what you say? Maybe the trash man needs it. Maybe it'll end up on the bottom of the ocean. Some diver that's been under conviction for a while find that thing in a clamshell. Right? So use it as openers, but also use it as reinforcers. So if you're talking to somebody and they're not ready to be saved, you can take a handful of these instead of leaving one with them. You can take a handful of them and say, "Listen, if you start thinking things over, read a couple of these and just kind of read through them, and maybe they'll give you a little bit of information. Answer a question or two, or something like that. But all right, anybody got